Warming up. All right, Greg. So let's talk about balance, and we're going to explore what happens from the address position. Let's say it is a very common position that we see players, and it was something that was maybe misrepresented for a long time in instruction as well, of kind of getting weight towards your toes at the address, the old sitting on the bar stool analogy, which you don't really hear too much anymore, mainly because there's a lot more research done in the golf swing and how to stay in balance and where exactly your pressure should shift. And I feel like when a lot of players get on their toes at address, and we were just talking about a few clients that you have that you've been working on recently here in Arizona, it was all about, like, as you're swinging this golf club back, when you're too far on your toes, your body in space is too far towards the golf ball in this balanced fashion. So what happens is, subconsciously, as a reaction, you start rocking more back towards the heels. Then all of a sudden, because you're now too far away from that ball by the time you get to the top, well, your body stalls out, you start throwing it, and before you know it, players are working on their impact position where they just need to check their balance and address, right?
Yeah, huge problem. I played in this Pro-Am yesterday, and the first thing that the guy did is he stood up there and he was about to hit his driver, and I could tell he's on his toes, he's on his toes. And at that level, I mean, he completely whiffed one time, and then he brought so many other people into danger, low rifling shots. He actually let his caddy hit all of his tee shots after that. But it was 100% his setup. So when he set up to the ball, you can do this at home. If you set up and you lean on your toes, I can move 2-3 inches closer to the ball just because I'm on my toes. And then as you go back, that's why with the Sabre I have my students stop. Because right here, you'll know you're on your toes. So then you kind of go, I have them do these heel toe taps like this, bounce up and down, because where the weight should be is right underneath the ankle bone, right in your instep, right there. Because once you're loaded up here and you then return the club back, that's your distance from the ball that has to be consistent.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. You're on your toes, you go back, your body self-balances, you come back through, you're 2 inches off, you catch it off the toe and it squirts out to the right. Well, then you don't realize what's going on because your head's moving around. Then you start throwing the club and reaching out and you're completely off balance.
Yeah, so just a couple of things there. As a reference, you put a circle around most professional golfers' head from the address position. It'll stay relatively centered to the top within the boundaries of it. It would transition down within it, make contact, and then move through. Sure, there's little movements, extension and flexion going up and down, but when we are looking at a professional, they keep that head relatively centered. Part of that is because in their address position, they are in balance, and the little exercise that I get a lot of players to do is simply just stomp their feet up and down. I really like this heel toe number that you were doing as well. And you can see not only does it look cool on the D floor, but as I get myself set, I'm not going to be too weighted towards the toes. And I think that's a great one for a lot of players, because just doing that, and this is why I like the tap the feet up and down, it actually encourages better pelvis position, so you're more likely going to have the right amount of front bend at address, and it actually just puts you into a position, as we preach all the time as performance coaches, right? You need to be an athlete when you're hitting a golf ball. We're not sitting on a bar stool. We're playing golf.
Right.
Yeah, so when we are in this position, those little references, that heel toe that you were doing here, that's great. Being able to
I like a little bounce of the knees.
Yeah, a little bounce in the knees, kind of moving. This is a pre-shot routine for every professional golfer that you see, right? They're moving them up and down. And then from there, as we get to the top, one thing you did reference, which I want you to talk a little bit more about, is you said right at the top of the swing here, the pressure should be more so, let's say, as a simplification, on the lead foot. That is very different from what a lot of players think of. The backswing is one movement, the downswing is one movement. We actually see that if you were putting a pressure map and all the studies done underneath the feet, there is a spike of pressure to start the backswing that allows a freedom of rotation up until the lead arm is level with the ground. Then it is a recentering back towards the target, and that flow puts you in a position where you are loaded up to fire like there's no tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah, and that's kind of linear, like you're talking about. And you imagine now your weight's on your toes and you start trying to do that. Now you go right, you go back, then you come forward and you're a mess, right? So if you've got, just like if I was to do a push-up, the pressure's going to be through the middle part of my palm, right? I like to think like underneath the ankle, right into the foot, that's where you should feel the pressure. Golf's a little different than sprinting or jumping or anything else. We have to create a connection to the ground and stay there.
Yeah.
Once we're there, like if I go to the top of my backswing and I check my heel toe balance, and and then I come back to the ball, what most people are going to see is they're not in the same spot.
Yeah.
So they'll get on their toes, go all the way up. They'll go, oh, I'm supposed to be checked.
Yeah.
Then they return the club. They'll be 2 inches inside the ball.
Correct. I think that's just a wonderful reference of being in balance at address, a great reference at the top of the swing where we would see that the pressure would shift towards the trail heel, the right heel here, and then recenter back towards the lead ball of the foot.
Yeah.
And being able to do that by that time that lead arm is parallel just gives us a better sensation of, really, I feel grounded, I feel centered, I feel like where I was within reason of where I started. Right? So is there any specific drill or exercise that you give players outside of just getting to a position where they're just aware of it as number one, but is there something that you do with it?
Yeah, when I work, especially when I work with my beginner golfers and my kids, I tell them head still, feet still, head still, feet still. Yeah. And the reason why is because I want them to create that acceleration through the ball with their feet relatively planted. Yeah. I mean, we've all done kind of feet together and hit some balls, which is great. I did that as a kid. But I'll have my students take a regular full stance and hit balls. And as they hit, I'll just have them stay right here. Okay. Yeah. And the reason is because as much pressuring and pushing is happening in the left foot, it's also happening in the right foot.
Correct.
And what happens to most people, they get to the top of the swing, they start pushing off their toe, and now they're pushed themselves out of position.
Stuck, right?
Yeah, so if you start looking at all the best players just at impact or just post-impact, what you're going to see, you know, is right here, rolling in a little bit into that right ankle, but their heel is going to be on the ground. And you watch a Tony Finau right now, as he comes through the ball, his toes are actually up in the air.
Oh, yeah.
And he hits the ball, he gets to all the way through about here before he decides to come all the way out. So head still, feet still is a great drill. Just have you hit little punch shots. A lot of times I'll tell my students, take out 5-iron, but only hit it 60 yards, like a little mini shot, but with your feet perfectly still.
Yeah.
Just so you can feel it.
Correct. And I would say that when we are keeping them still, it's not like they're not moving at all. There's still little pressure shifts within them and their head staying relatively still. They're not just moving around a lot, like visually moving. I think we should stay.
Yeah, a good visual for that is I tell my students, if I had a piece of paper and some paint, and I stomp my foot in the paint, and then stomp it on the paper, stomp it in the paint, and then put it on the other side of the paper, I'm going to see little smudges around because my feet are allowed to move a little bit. But what I'm not going to see is a whole bunch of slipping.
Yeah. All right, so let's step up, and I'm just going to get the feel of that kind of moving through. Yeah, that feels really good. It allows me to swing the weight of the golf club a little bit better, which helps us with our release. You can feel that head doing the work. Let's apply that into a shot. Tell you what, combination of all these drills, mate, it's coming out good. Cheers.
Very good.